welcome to card number 5. So I'm using these Craft Smart stamps that I got at Michael's. These are the Halloween ones that you get in dollar bin. And I just chose 3 of the images, and I had already punched out 3 1 3/8" circles from some green cardstock. With something like this, you could stamp them first, then punch them out, whatever works for you. But yeah, I just punched the circles first and then stamped the images onto them with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then cleaned up the ink off of my craft mat, otherwise it would have got everywhere. And then I'm using this Hero Art spider web background stamp, and I just flipped it over and laid it face up on my table, and then inked it up with Stampin' Up's Whisper White pigment ink, and then laying a piece of gray cardstock over that and just using my fingers to press it onto the stamp. So it wouldn't matter to me if I actually ended up missing areas, because it's like a spiderweb design, so it wouldn't matter. But when I lifted it off, I ended up like inking it perfectly, so it just worked out. And then normally I was planning on leaving the circles just as is, keeping this like really simple, but I couldn't help myself and wanted to add a little bit more dimension to them, just to make them kind of pop a little bit more and just look a little more finished. Just took some Copic markers, and like I've said in previous videos, you have to be really careful with that when you're using VersaFine ink, because it's not compatible with Copics, like it'll smear. So I just ran around the outside of the images with the Copics, being careful not to touch the black, and then went over it again with the YG23. I did 25 first, then 23. And then I just took my YG quadruple 0 just to blend it out a bit more, and it looks darker here, but since it's over green cardstock, it's just going to, when it dries, it's just going to fade to nothing. So I did that, and then I grabbed my Le Plume white pigment marker, and you kind of got to press it down to get the ink flowing. So I'm just using a scrap of cardstock to get a little bit of ink flowing before I actually touch it to the image and wreck it. And then I just added a little bit of white to like the fangs and to the stripes in her hair and different things, just to make it pop even more without having to do a ton of like coloring and blending. So I wasn't exactly sure like where I was going to put it. I was just pretty much flying by the seat of my pants with this card, and just as things kind of popped in my head, I'd kind of go with it. So yeah, just adding a little bit of highlights here and there, and then decided to add a couple little highlights to little bolts in Frankenstein's neck there. So got that, and then I went back and fixed some of the ones on the other couple of images, like on the stripes on her hair, because I didn't do them very well, and then really lightly dabbed them onto, because she's got little bandages on her arms. So yeah, it just kind of makes everything pop and kind of finishes it off there. So then once I've got all of that done, the little main images are done. So then for the card front itself, the white ink is dried. I was going to add a strip of black cardstock, and then the sentiment is also from the dollar bin. So I just inked that up again with the VersaFine ink, and then just stamped it right onto the gray cardstock right over the spider web. And then I'm just going to add adhere the strip of black cardstock over that. And then I wanted to add another little bit of embellishment, so I just grabbed a couple colors of baker's twine, wanting to use purple and orange. So I did it in a double length of purple, and then I took another double length of the orange and just tied them into a bow together. It just takes a little bit of fiddling when you're using this many pieces to kind of get everything to line up properly. But once I got the bow the way I want it, fiddle with the tails a little bit until I'm happy with it, and then kind of move it around. And then for the little circles, I wanted to pop them up a bit too, since the Divine Twine was kind of like taking center stage there. So I just grabbed some large dimensionals and stuck those on there. So yeah, super simple. Got that the way I wanted it, and then I decided I wanted to add just a few more embellishments, just because the purple and orange were kind of there, like they needed something to kind of ground them, I guess is the easiest way to explain it. So I grabbed some orange and purple brads from my stash, and then peeled the backing off the little main images, so then I've got those adhered, and then put a sponge mat behind my card front, and then I'm just adding all these brads just randomly, just kind of spaced all around these little circles, just for little pops of orange and purple, and then it just kind of makes everything match a little bit better. So did that, and then I was going to put tape over like I always do, you know, when you hear it, and then looking at all those brads and the Divine Twine, I was like, that's not even, it's just going to be a pain in the butt trying to get that to adhere to a card. So I popped it all in dimensional, so then that pops up even more off the card front, which is black again, and it just takes a little bit more work to line it up when they're on dimensionals, but got that done. And then last but not least, I kind of decided I would fill in the letters, again, really carefully with Copic marker. Not trying to blend or anything, just to fill them in, just for something fun. And then for the inside, just a piece of green cardstock. And I said I took the 3 images again, inked them up with the black, and then just stamped them peeking around the edges of the cardstock. They just kill me. Just the looks on their faces are funny, so I just thought that would be funny to have them hanging around the inside too. So just stamped them all, just like so. Cleaned up my mess of the ink on the craft mat, and then for the sentiment, I just inked it up again with the black, stamped it onto the same shade of gray as I used on the front, and then the happy for the Halloween, inked that up again and just eyeballed it. Usually ones like this it's easier to use a stamp positioner, but just eyeballed it. And I had already checked before I started. This one actually fit right inside the same size circle I used for the front, so just a 1 3/8 inch circle, so punch that out. So yeah, just going to adhere that to the inside and just leaving it as is, not adding any like shading or anything, because this is where you just write something. Just wanted to keep this card kind of something more simple and fun. So yeah, added the adhesive to that. I'm going to adhere that to the inside of the card, and that's all there was to it. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye!